Hello everyone. First time doing a stream with an actual proper camera instead of the piece of garbage I have on my laptop, so please bear with me. I know the lighting's hot garbage. I'm working on fixing that. So, I'm gonna be doing some route building out over here. Figure out exactly what I want to work on right now. Kind of leaving this downtown area for later, because honestly, I'm not especially good at building cities. And if you see me looking over to the side, this just because I have my chat open on my laptop, so if anyone wants to say hi, please do. And the other thing is, until I can get a decent pair of headphones, I am not actually going to be able to hear what's going on my computer. So please bear with me. I'm still new to this. I'm going to keep working on this branch since it is single track and it should be fairly easy to deal with. Figure out exactly. The thing with these particular roads is that you have to lower them a little bit so they clear the crossing properly, because it's easier to change the height of the roads than it is to change the height of the railroad, because then you have to deal with signals and platform heights and all that other stuff. And this is commuter territory, so it is kind of important. Have I already built a bunch? I don't think I've lowered that one yet, so... Excuse me, just a little bit dry right now. Get my height from here. I'll finish that crossing later. In case you're wondering, this is all based on the Charleston area of South Carolina, where I'm from. Specifically, most of the route that I'm working on so far is on the side of town that's roughly Mount Pleasant, Sullivan's Island, Isle of Palms, and I'm kind of starting Daniel Island as to where I'm building right now. This road I'm working on is going to be South Carolina 41. If you're from this area, you know especially if you live around or work in Mount Pleasant, you probably know this road, and you probably know how dangerous it is when it comes to deer. I have had my fair share of close calls in the past. Eventually, this branch line is going to continue all the way to the Nucor steel mill, but I'll deal with that later. I'm going to try and get commuter territory finished first. I'm trying to model the steel mill after the real thing, but it is a very tedious process. It looks a little bit better. Maybe I might be a little bit of a perfectionist, but when it comes to my routes, I like to make sure that they look good. The other thing is, I'm not going to bother with working traffic. The traffic patterns around here are too complicated to make work in the game. Excuse me, so the most I'm probably just going to do is make sure all my crossings work. So roughly Route 17 parallels where my railroad would be. Unfortunately, there's not a railroad here in real life, but I wish there was, because I hate Charleston traffic, and anybody from here knows exactly what I'm talking about. I need to move this a little bit closer to the tracks. I'm only starting with this first side of 17 just so I make sure that I have everything in the right place, because it's easier to redo one side of the road if you have to redo it than it is to try to redo basically something that has the same number of lanes as an interstate. I'm roughly happy with where the road, at least where the side of the road actually is. So now I'm going to move, not as much move, I'm gonna cut off the part here. I'll deal with all the rest of this later. In real life there's some shops and stuff in here. I'm probably gonna put something in here. I apologize for the squeaking in my chair. I cannot figure out for the life of me why it does that. Okay, let's see, is this gonna fit? And this is a fairly tight curve, so it does kind of restrict what you can do with it. Keep getting this wrong because the tracks aren't exactly aligned with the grid. Why won't it get to exactly 180? I don't get that. Wait, 180.1, close enough, I guess. Yeah, this doesn't really fit. I need something smaller. And it has to be something that's pretty well detailed because it is right next to the main line and the passenger branch line. See, a big part of route building is figure out what you want to put in a specific place. Yeah, I knew that was going to be too big, but let's see what we're working with here. Yeah, my view seems to be doing better than normal, so I guess this camera thing really does work. Maybe I'll put a gas station in here. Maybe that's what I need to do. Excuse me, it's dusty in here. Yeah, this just about fits. This siding over here is just a tame track for freight cars. Excuse me. In real life, there's a lot of construction. Not as much construction, but this is a very heavily populated area. Might as well start painting the ballast along the main line because they have started, but In case you're wondering what... thanks for the compliment, Phyllis. Technically these are fox ears. They're kind of a good luck thing. I wear these a lot. But, as I was saying, I pretty much decided this line is going to be rated for 79 miles an hour passenger, and actually about 70 for freight. And I'll get into things like system special instructions later. Even though this is a fictional railroad, I do try to operate realistically. I'm working on timetables. I've already come up with a timetable for what I call the Sea Islands branch. It's the other line. It's way off in the distance there. In real life, you cannot see between these places because, well, there's all sorts of things there, like I don't know, the marsh. The one thing I don't like about textures in this game is that they are kind of sometimes you need a sharp contrast between textures, and the way so let me demonstrate what I'm talking about. You see how that's kind of like a soft transition? I don't like that. So what I think I'm going to try and do is use some kind of spline to create it. And also, thanks for the compliment, Phyllis. Yeah, it's very rare that you see asphalt that's still like fully almost black. I don't work in construction, but from what I've seen when they repave the roads around here, it tends to get weathered very quickly. So, I mean, if it happens with roads, it'll happen with literally anything else. So, and usually, Mount Pleasant's a fairly wealthy area, so things tend to be in good shape. But even in the best areas, places like gas stations tend to be not as much run down, but just they do sometimes let their parking lots decay. Well, the less I complain about the exact standard of road maintenance in South Carolina, the better. When it's the state doing it, they suck at it. I mean, there's no real other way to put it. I don't know if there's any particular kind of regulation for how far away asphalt has to be from a main line, but I feel like maybe just putting a fence along here will, maybe just a fence along the edge of the asphalt here eventually that should be fine. I've seen some places where they have like not as much streets but like parking lots and stuff really close to the tracks. That's not really what I'm going for here, but it is kind of close. I like the way that's coming out. I really need to start using my layers more. Or at least I need to start. When you lock a layer like this, it basically locks the building in place. So you can work stuff around, like add details, etc. with them. Okay, I do need to raise the height of this just a little bit so it doesn't look like it's conflicting. Yeah, that looks right. I saved a bunch of cars in here, so at least some of them. The way I tend to work on these routes is I kind of do like one little small area at a time. If I try to do like some massive area at once, I get overwhelmed. Should probably add some parking. Should probably add some like parking lines and stuff there, because one of these days I am going to measure my milepost numbers and do that. All this that I have over here over at Daniel Island, it took me about 2 days of working with it to get it built. Actually, the part that took the longest was filling up the parking lot. That's the most tedious thing about route building is doing all those small details. We gotta put a little sidewalk or something in front of there. I really have to get this chair fixed. This is driving me insane. I need to play with OBS a little bit here so that my channel icon doesn't literally block my entire face, because that is kind of annoying. I just noticed it. And hopefully that fixes it. extend this sidewalk just a little around the building here. Just part of the way around the building. Okay, so it looks like what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to. I can't use these line. I don't think I can really use these lines of cars, just because there aren't enough spaces, and also they're the wrong distance apart. One of the things I've always disliked about this game is, there's a lot of very good content as far as scenery goes to represent, the 1950s, or to represent sort of rural areas. Not as much stuff for just your typical American suburbia, which sucks for those of us trying to do that sort of route like this is here. Okay, that's gonna have to be another. Put more sidewalks up here. Looks like my views are still doing pretty well, so thank you to everyone who's tuning in. Actually, I think what I need to add here is a curb. To give you an idea of what this is roughly the area that I'm using as my basis over here on the map. So what I'm actually going to do is that Highway 41 service road, I'm actually going to put it on the inside of the curve here and basically turn that into the street that goes to the station. Once I get this particular scene finished. No, that's not right. Okay, now all I really need to do here is maybe, at least at the front of this, is add a couple of fire hydrants. If anyone knows much about fire hydrants, please feel free to chime in, because I really don't know how the colors of fire hydrants are supposed to work. Maybe I'm going to put some trees in that little median too. Given that this is South Carolina, of course they have to. Palmetto trees are everywhere. You see them used a lot in landscaping because they don't take up that much space and they look nice. It's kind of like how I did here. I should move that hydrant a little bit in, but it's kind of in line with the other one. Trying to find the right intersection to go here. Yeah, actually this should be a regular intersection because that road does go across a little bit. I guess you could make it look like that intersection had just been repaved. It does happen where only the intersection gets repaved. And I'm going to do the opportunity here to do what the city really has been needing to do for years and actually give this intersection a traffic light. Sorry, SCDOT, do better. That particular intersection, if you're trying to get across it, as in you're not on 41. I've heard a few people nickname that intersection Kamikaze because of how difficult it is to get through there. In real life, there's also a curve a little bit further down that you can't see cars coming down, like as in going towards 17, but that's a whole other issue. Funny how just a random girl in a video game can apparently do a better job of traffic control than the actual state DOT, apparently. I'll deal with the whole station parking lot here later. What I'll probably do is I'm just going to put a parking garage, because honestly that's what most major commuter rail stations actually need. Okay, yeah, I probably should. Should just reconnect it in anyway. I wonder if there's anything else I can configure with this intersection to make it. Yeah, put some street lights here. Nobody likes a dark intersection. I'm not going to work on this crossing. The general rule is that, at least what I've heard, is that crossings have to be activated within 20 seconds. So if you solve for distance, this game measures things in feet. So speed would be miles per hour. Time is going to be seconds. I'll just say 80 just to make it out. That is going to tell me where I need to put the triggers for the crossing, which I'll do later, but I'll measure that out for now. And no, that signal's not going to be floating in midair forever. I'll just round that up to 2,500 because of those crossovers there make it a little bit complicated. So it's 900. It's 900. Plus. These curves make it a little bit harder, but you can deal with it. Try to make that a little bit longer. Now that we have that in place. God, why am I so bad at typing? Yeah, there's going to be a sidewalk here, but it's kind of by necessity. It's going to have to be kind of broken up by this gas station here. So, the same asset for the sidewalk. Well, at least it's only I'm only planning it for it to kind of go this far. In real life, this road doesn't have sidewalks. It doesn't have to be perfect from a distance, especially because I kind of designed my route in a way so that it's best viewed from the cab of a locomotive or a cab car. That's really what guides my, how I build it. So anything that's like too far away, I can use, older assets if I need to. Lower the sidewalk here to make sure it clears the rail. And adjust my camera a little bit. kind of have to build the sidewalk ahead of time just to be absolutely sure that everything's going to work as far as clearances go. I'll make any necessary modifications to the road itself after I get the crossing in. My phone real quick, make sure I didn't miss anything important. Okay, now onto the actual crossing. This is going to be long enough. Okay, that is not going to work. It's the problem is it doesn't quite fit. I'll just use another one. Let me check which one I used over here, because that one I had a maybe this is going to work. I might just have to do a separate gate for the road and the sidewalk. Now let's see how. Okay, that doesn't work. Okay, so we'll use 2 of these. This and that little gap between the side of the road and the sidewalk, just put a pedestrian gate on each side of the crossing. And I feel like this should just be a good reminder. Please be safe around trains. Trains can't stop on a dime, so when those gates go down, just stop. I'm not sponsored by Operation Lifesaver, although honestly it would be nice to be, because it is a message I really believe in. I do feel like people sometimes don't take safety seriously enough around trains. So if there's anything you can take away from this live stream, just remember to be safe around trains. And now I'm going to get the ATLS stuff set up. It's taken me quite a while to really get the hang of ATLS. It's not the easiest system to learn. I mean, I guess if I really wanted to, I probably could use some of them, I guess, pre-built crossings, but they really don't work, because every railroad crossing kind of has to be unique. Yeah, this is kind of a tedious aspect of route building, is getting all the crossings to work right, but it is important. Another thing is, I always test these crossings after I think I'm finished building them. I need to put our ATLS triggers. We put one on each track at the end of the crossing. Each end of the crossing, I should say, because this one's wide enough that, especially if a train's coming into the station at lower speed, it does actually matter that the train's all the way through the crossing before it starts to go up. I think once I get this crossing built and I make sure it works properly, I'm actually gonna kind of run a test train on the branch line. Actually, probably both the branch line and the main line. Make sure the triggers are set up right. Yeah, two-way running is what I want. Each of these tracks, at least on this line, is bi-directional. Technically, the entire railroad is bi-directional, but on some lines it's sort of a It's sort of a backup thing. As in, if there's a train broken down or something needs to be routed around, you can, but it's not ideal, and you'd be under some sort of restricted speed. That sort of directional main that I'm talking about, that used to be common on railroads back in the day. It's not so much anymore. I mean, I'm pretty sure the Pennsylvania Railroad had a fairly extensive track record of directional mains. But they had the 4-track main, so they could pretty much do whatever they wanted with that. Before anyone starts talking about, oh, you're a Pennsy foamer, it's like, yeah, the Pennsy did do a lot of wrong things. In their later years, they had just awful management. You have to admit their steam locomotives were generally pretty good. And pretty much until after World War II, they seemed to know what they were doing when it came to just running trains properly. Also, fun fact, the Belpaire fireboxes were actually statistically safer than regular boilers. At least according to some sources from the time. And I'm going to use this little high rail to test the crossing. Okay. This is running a little bit slower than track speed is, so this does seem to work pretty well. That seems to work pretty well. Guess I've finally gotten the hang of it. Actually, I think before I run any trains, I'm gonna finish up signaling on this line. At least the major signaling. Branch line's already mostly done. No, that's not good. I wasn't trying to get the track type, I was trying to. Yeah, this looks about right. Look at where was my last signal bridge that I actually finished. Okay, this is the last one that I started working on and didn't quite finish. Actually, I need to figure out if I'm going to use distance. Okay, yeah, I need to use distance southbound. Once you have this heighted signal bridge right, all you really have to do is just move these into position. And this is a fairly high-density commuter and freight line, so... Well, commuter, long-distance, and freight line, I should say. So the signals, by necessity, have to be somewhat close together. I am very heavily inspired by the old Burlington route up in Chicago. So, since I'm going to put a bridge here... I can just put regular single head signals on this part of it. Yeah, I'm using these, they call them G-style. These were used on Conrail back in the day, and they're still around in a few places. I know they're outside Union Station in Chicago. Pretty sure New Jersey Transit still uses them as well. I prefer semaphores, but unfortunately Joint Rail haven't made gantry versions of their hall semaphores yet, so I'm kind of stuck with this. They don't look bad, it's just I prefer semaphores. So I'm gonna put this signal bridge almost right at the end of the platform here. I might decide to just make this one just a little bit wider than the rest. I'm definitely going to put another signal bridge right here. So you kind of have to plan these signals out. So these are interlocking signals for the crossovers in the branch line. Generally, it's best practice to put your signal bridges at the end of stations. I know a lot of railroads, well, there aren't that many railroads that run passenger in the U.S. nowadays, but the ones that do, I do kind of tend to see them do that. It's actually an evolution of the real old days when you'd have a, this is going to get the British signaling a little bit, but you'd have a starter signal that would be controlled by, I guess, the interlocking tower operator. Another signal bridge in between here, and then it'll be good on this section. Now I can start actually putting the signals in. I have to imagine that a railroad like this would be a pretty good challenge to dispatch, especially in rush hour. Because you've got, a bunch of commuter trains, then also regional long-distance passenger trains, and a few freights mixed in there. If anyone ever tries to tell you about rolling blocks with positive train control, I don't think that's going to work. The last thing we need is to have trains running extremely close together. And I know rail fans would probably like it, but it's not good for safety. Because, let's say passenger train goes into emergency and there's a freight train not too far behind, well, guess what's going to happen? That sort of thing is why I always say that people need to learn physics. One reason I don't speed in my car is because if a deer pops out in front of me, the faster I'm going, the longer it's going to take me to stop for that deer. And, well, unfortunately I don't have full coverage insurance yet, so if nothing else, that's a pretty good motivator to drive carefully, if you know your insurance isn't going to cover the damage if you hit something. Typically on a railroad like this that has their signals so close together, you're going to see some sort of You know, basically, you're gonna have speed restrictions on restricting signals, and they're going to be a lot stricter than than they would be in other places. Don't quote me on this. It might have changed since I was in Chicago, but on the old Burlington, it was I believe if you got flashing yellow, it was 45 miles an hour. If you got yellow, it was 30, and if it was flashing red, it was 15. And yeah, those are signal aspects you will see on that line. Commuter operations really are interesting. The reason I have the track marks for the station so far from the platform is because, especially with locomotives, if you put them right at the end, the train's going to stop far short, and you're going to end up with only half the train actually in the platform. Which, yeah, I've kind of played around with it a little bit, and I do need to just make sure that they're all right. Check text real quick. Yeah. As much as I wish I could just completely put my phone away and focus on streaming all the time, unfortunately sometimes I do have to check things. One of the reasons I'm streaming so much now is I'm trying to get my watch hours up so I can get my channel monetized. And don't worry, I'm not gonna just quit streaming as soon as I hit that threshold. I might stream less, but I'm really trying to put in the effort right now just to make sure I get to that point. And what happens after that point, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Hopefully when I get monetized, I can... A couple of things I really want. I need a new camera. So hopefully that'll help. And any of you who've been watching my flight simulator videos, I really want to get the 737 for that, but unfortunately it is fairly expensive, and I'm having a hard time finding work right now, so welcome to the modern economy is all I'm going to say on that. But I'm basically figuring that if I'm stuck at home anyway, I might as well try and make something out of my channel. I've been on YouTube for long enough. Yeah, enough of me ranting about monetization. I would maybe consider trying to stream on Twitch, but at this point, I don't really understand how that platform really works. So I'll have to do some more research on that and just see if I can, just see what I can do. I'm at the point where I'm just trying to make the most out of my channel. But I have a bit of a rough start with some of my streaming. That's partially just because I'm new to it. I don't know I don't know the software and everything as well as I probably should before I start. Yeah, I've done a few streams before, but before this current rush of them. I'm going to try to stream, at least until I can find work, I'm going to try and stream about maybe 5 times a week. I have to fit it around stuff I'm already doing, but I feel like I can make it work. So I've been live for a little over an hour. I've had 36 views so far, which is, I mean, it's decent, better than I have been getting. So I am not going to complain. Yeah, I made the mistake of putting distance signals up there, so I don't really get this LD versus right D part, so I think LD and RD mean left diverging and right diverging, but I'm probably wrong. As you can easily see, this route is nowhere near finished, so if I have to come back and change things, I can. I've been through a lot of versions of this route. This is probably at least the fourth version I've actually worked on. My other ones were all lost in some sort of computer problem. The good thing is, my desktop has a solid-state drive, so, and it stays on my desk, as the name implies. So, I shouldn't be dealing with any physical damage to my drives. Both of my drives on here are solid-state drives. One is 4 terabytes. That's the main one I'm using, and then I have a 1 terabyte one that I just use for basically when I need to process a large file. I did a stream when I unboxed my desktop. So if you want to know what all my computer specs are, it should be somewhere in there, but eventually I'll post it on my channel what my specs are. Yeah, so far got the first part of the line pretty much. Let me check. So pretty much from the Cooper River Bridge. Yeah, this is a river. I'm going to extend it later on. Pretty much all the way to Brickyard. I currently have the main line signaled. Mostly. Still got to do a little bit of it. There's a couple bridges I need to do along here. Sea Islands branch I pretty much have that entirely signaled. I am changing some things from real life, just partially to fill space and also make it just feel right. But I'm going to work on finishing the signaling on the main line. The other thing about the main line is that, at least in my lore, I've had it so that basically it's continually evolving. Like in some of my previous versions, at this interlocking it went down to 2 tracks, but I added the 3rd track here, and I've built it so it looks like it's a new edition. And then further out, and then I'll show you further out, but once I'm done with all this, but there's going to be sort of extended commuter service, a new track being built further out. And this goes in with how the area is just developing in real life. Because there's a lot of people moving here to the Charleston area, and the less I say about my opinions on that, the better. Because all I'm gonna say is, actually, I feel like I should give my opinion on this because I am a native South Carolinian. If you move here and you're a good contributing member of society and you're respectful, we consider you to be a Southerner, just as if you were born here. But if you move here and act like a jerk, people don't like that. That's all I'm going to say on that. This is all going to be semaphores. Well, maybe not semaphores here, but basically the G-style signals are basically just a signaling upgrade in my own lore to just make sure that everything's compatible within a certain territory. I am probably gonna add some extra signal bridges between these stations further out, just to make operations easier. I'll respond to a quick text again. I feel like I should add another signal bridge like right here. And yes, I use Pensy style signal bridges partially because just they're available. I think they look good enough. But yeah, they're available, they work, they're highly detailed, and they have the clearance that I need, because a lot of the other stuff we have as far as signal bridges is actually British, and if you know anything about Britain's trains, you just know that British infrastructure cannot take American trains. Class 66 aside, because, well, 59, because we designed those. We designed those for the British network. Oh yeah, and there was that time that Flying Scotsman came to the U.S., but that's a whole separate thing. That would have been something to see. Excuse me. Flying Scotsman coming to the U.S. and being fitted with a headlight. Because those of you who don't know, British steam locomotives don't have headlights. This interlocking at Woodville Station is going to be a little bit complicated. It's not like a signal bridge at one end sort of thing. It's going to have to be pretty much trackside. It's going to be mostly trackside signals. Mostly. In fact, I'm going to have to pretty much say that there's going to have to be multiple signal bridges just to accommodate everything. Yeah, I built this area we worked on in my last Trainz 22 stream. Okay, looks like I need to move this back just a little bit. Actually, I can remove that because it's not going to clear much of anything. I'll figure this out, but this is not an easy interlocking to figure out signals for. One thing I could probably do is, at least for this one, maybe I can mount the signal on the on the footbridge. So basically, in this case, there's been a new reinforced signal bridge installed here for these new main tracks, and I don't have them connected specifically because these are supposed to be still like under construction tracks. In my own lore, the commuter extension is supposed to open in 2030. The stations are already in service, but for regional trains only. You see I've put some construction equipment along here. So I'm going to put up my new signal bridges along here, and then past these interlockings, it's just going to be your... well, actually, I'll have to see on that. Out this way, since this is getting into more of like a rural area, this is going to be 90 miles an hour for passenger. Might consider some even higher speeds in certain areas if I can find equipment that can take it. Once again, I might decide to just put like little ballast piles around the footings of the signal bridge. Yeah. And these new tracks make it almost look like, that, the way that Caltrain had their line for a while, with some track with wooden ties and some with concrete. So now I'm at least going to be able to signal the line as far as... I'm still going to do it. Actually, no, I'm not going to do a signal bridge here. I'll do a line side here. And that should have it. At least as far as Woodville, this should have all my signaling needs taken care of. And I'm putting signals especially close together right here because there's going to be some slowdowns from trains coming on and off the branch line, especially freight, because that is... What did I set the speed limit on that curve at? Yeah, there's 25 mile an hour curve for passenger trains, potentially slower for freight. So. So we're gonna have distance signals northbound, and just regular ones southbound. That needs to be... yeah. Something I can never get properly right when the track isn't even with the grid. I do sometimes have a problem with making sure that the signal bridge is aligned properly. That's weird. That's a distance signal too, but anyway. gonna see if OBS, maybe I can get this right in OBS so I'm not using the map much, so maybe this one. I have to edit, I have to change this just a little bit so I can. Yeah, I'm not really using the map that much, so I'll just make it a full screen for the simulator. You have 4 gantry. That's what I'm going to want on the southbound side of this one. Yeah. Fingers are getting a little stiff from sitting here all this time. Okay, I can probably remove these because I don't really need them here. That's again just another team track, a very tight one, but you can probably get 50-foot cars to go in there. Nothing worse than I've seen in a few places around the port. Distant gantry signals, put it. If anyone's noticed, I am very heavily inspired by the old Burlington route in Chicago because I used to commute on that line. I might just definitely gonna keep them. Gonna keep these line side signals here. One of the things about my railroad is that it's basically old style operations in the modern era. So yes, I run steam. I eventually plan for this to be almost the prototype for my model railroad, whenever that happens. I almost forgot to put a signal bridge here. You could. At 41 views, average view duration is 2 minutes and 16 seconds as of right now. So if you're just joining, please stick around. I'm not gonna bite. that's going to be line side signals. I'm going to put my distance up here. So one thing is my railroad does run mail trains and railway post offices. However, it should be noted that not every commuter station is going to have mail service. That's just because they're close enough together. There isn't really a point. Excuse me, it is kind of late here. It's 10:43 p.m. Thing is, I really need to start streaming earlier in the day, but I have a hard time getting up early. Tomorrow I'm probably going to stream in the evening, maybe 5 p.m. at the earliest. But I'm going to the Model Railroad Club tomorrow and Sunday. So when I talk about what time I'm going to be streaming, I have to factor in, like, you know, the driving time and preparation, because it does take me time to get properly set up for a stream. I want to make sure I save everything before something horrible happens and I lose half my work. I'll try to reload this. I have to load my stream page over on my laptop because for some reason it shows everything over the last like 24 hours for some reason. Anyway, that's just me. I'm gonna make sure. I'm just gonna double check that all the ones that I did so far are right. Make sure I got this right both ways. And now on to the next one. so far for most of my stations, I pretty much just have like buildings and platforms. This route is going to take years to complete. Don't worry, this isn't going to be all that I stream. If you've been following my channel, I do stream a lot of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Last night I did some Train Simulator Classic. So those are kind of... I'm going to start streaming Railroader in a little bit. I just want to make sure I have everything set up, because... Well, really, before I start doing Railroader, I want to make sure I have my mod list published. Excuse me. Because I have very heavily modded the game. A lot of new industries, locomotives, freight cars, etc. I don't want people to feel like, you know, I'm leaving them out or something, because they don't have the mods. But really, with Trainz 22, the thing I just, you know, I could buy all the DLC out of just regularly. I just get the subscription. It's easier that way. I hate the subscription economy, but unfortunately, it is part of the economy, and it's kind of a deal with the devil, but it's one that you have to make. Because I mean, if I bought everything at full price, I'd be probably spending more on Trainz DLC than I would be on a new car. So, and I'd much rather put my money towards a new car. So, I'm not going to put a signal up here just because there's going to be a separate ground signal for trains coming out of the commuter yard. And these new tracks in this version that just haven't had their signals installed yet. I'm gonna see if I can mount a signal on the footbridge here. No, that's okay. No, that's too tall. Okay, that's not supposed to be a distance signal. But okay, that works. I'm gonna have to program, you know, how you want trains to come out of the station. I'm gonna have to find something to deal with this right here, this gap. But that'll be for later. Basically, for reasons of realism, there have to be two footbridges there. In this particular junction, the signal just got moved back basically to allow room for that extra lead track to get moved over. Excuse me, like I said, it is pretty late here. And I'm trying to not be one of those people who's entirely nocturnal as much as I'd like to be. Okay, that signal at ground level can be deleted. I just put some of those there when I was running a test last week just to make sure that everything would, actually work properly. I don't know why I always get so many notifications while I'm streaming. Got a couple new followers to my Instagram page. One of these days I gotta post a link to my Instagram on my channel, because I don't really do anything. I don't really do anything too much on my Instagram, but post a few pictures every once in a while. I don't really use it that much. Maybe I should just treat this whole area as one interlocking because it's so close together. I think that's what I'm gonna do. Actually, maybe this whole Y area needs to be one solid interlocking. Put some stuff on the ground here. This line that this Y goes to is just it's a connector that connects the main line to the Sea Islands branch. It's used by, a few passenger trains and equipment moves mostly, sometimes freights when needed. Okay, so this is all one interlocking over here. So now I guess around here is going to be where Semaphore's territory starts. So 6, I believe this is supposed to be a distance signal, but I wish these weren't set to be automatically approach LED. Pretty much nothing in commuter territories approach LED as far as I'm aware. So I have to edit each of these so they're not approach LED. Actually, I probably need to. There are a couple more interlockings I have to do, but I'm not sure what the significance is of these being separated, some heads being separated so much. But I'll just roll with it. And this is going to be another case of the existing signals are moved back to make way for changes to the interlocking. Change my map settings so it shows signals. Add a couple distance signals going this way. Whatever's causing this squeaking, I gotta deal with this, but I'm not gonna deal with it right now because I'm, you know, literally in the middle of something. Basically, approach LED signals generally work best when in areas that don't have a lot of traffic. That's why I see them a lot on like rural lines that are freight only. check on, gotta make sure to put the right signals there. Okay, yeah, I should replace these with distance. At 54 views. It seems like people are seeing my videos. The only distance signal I'm going to put right here is going to be this one coming out of this bay platform here. But since that's not in service yet, I don't have to install it yet. Well, technically these are both bay platforms, or stub-end platforms, I should say. That's because this is where commuter trains are going to terminate. Next, I'm going to put some approach signals going this way where this one is. The area that this is set in is mostly just forest right now, but I guarantee within about 5-10 years you're going to see a lot more development out that way, towards like Ondon, McClellanville, South Carolina. I've driven through these places, and yet it really is just absolutely the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's the kind of place that I'd be really afraid for my car to break down. How am I not getting this right? Yeah, this one has to be a left-hand signal. This one has to be a right-hand signal. Closer. Okay, so that's all my interlocking signals taken care of. Now I just have to do some of these intermediate ones. We're sitting at 63 views, okay. I guess people like this kind of content. One of the things I need to do when I'm done with these signals is I need to decide exactly where that 90-mile-an-hour speed limit is going to start, and then put down some speed boards for there, so trains will run, you know, accurately fast. And yes, I know that technically you have to have positive train control to be able to run passenger trains nowadays. And yes, my railroad does have positive train control. But no, you're not. No, you're not going to see it in obvious places on equipment once I start making equipment. Because I just have 2 intermediate signal sets to finish, and then I'll put my 90-mile-an-hour speed boards down. So my average view duration is somewhere around 2 minutes. So. I guess, you know, I guess that's kind of expected, because, you know, I don't put any sort of, you know, I'm not clickbaiting anybody, I'm not, you know, I'm not doing any of that stuff that some people do. I mean, you know, if you're watching this, I mean, it's literally what it says in the title. I'm working on my route. So, nothing special, just figure that. And also, this is stuff all the stuff I'm doing in my streams is stuff I pretty much would be doing anyway. So it's not like I'm just sitting here wasting my time trying to stream when I could be doing something else, because I'm, you know, this is what I'm doing right now. I don't expect to make this a full-time job. It would be nice if that would happen. But realistically, no. At least not for a long time. I don't really do a lot of properly competitive gaming. I mean, I play World of Warships, but I quit War Thunder a while back because the grind is just absolutely horrible. And I mean, if there was one game that would define the concept of pay to win, I think it would have to be War Thunder. But anyway. This is going to be as far as I take the route, just for right now, until I get commuter territory dealt with a little bit better. Keeping a couple extra signals down there just to make sure that the system works right. Yes, this is a Pensy style station. Yeah, I think I do need to raise the station itself to be compatible with where the platforms are. I think that's better. I gotta double check this other station, make sure that that's where it's supposed to be. Yeah, this looks about right. Yeah, I think where it's gonna go up to 90 is gonna be right. It's gonna be past this. Maybe at the first set of signals past this interlocking. Yeah, but there has to be a left version of whichever one I'm going to use, because... Okay, that's not going to work. I have to go and look for some decent speed boards. Most of the American ones don't go above 79. Looks like I'm not doing much here, but I actually am doing something because I have Content Manager open and I'm trying to find some decent ones. Sometimes when you're just looking around the download station, sometimes you just find things that you're not looking for, but you're gonna end up using later. the heck? So my game just crashed. No. Well, that really sucks. This is really annoying. It has to rebuild the database, because of course it does so. Okay, I'm going to be going on an intermission real quick until this finishes. Okay, back from intermission. Thankfully that didn't take too long. This game is really weird sometimes. This game has been out for like 4 years now. At least this version of it has been out for like 4 years now. You'd think they would have gotten it fixed. Anyway, thankfully I saved right before that happened, so the autosave in here doesn't work. Okay, yeah, that's not going to work. Okay, got something that works finally. As I said before, there aren't exactly a lot of American railroads that run at 90 miles an hour anymore. There used to be a lot. And then after the Naperville train crash, and I believe that was 47, a lot of restrictions came in place that basically said, you know, you can't run faster than 79, and that's why we have 79 as a speed now. Because the way the rule was written was that 80 miles an hour or faster had, I believe, cab signals were required. Excuse me. So for 79 or under, cab signals were not required, and thus 79 became the standard speed limit for passenger trains in the U.S. Bit of a history lesson there. I used to commute from Naperville where that accident happened. There's still a very interesting memorial at the east end of the eastbound platform. So this whole section of north of here is 90 miles an hour until way further down. Way further down than I'm currently modeling on the route. Ooh, my viewer count jumped. Which is perfect, because now we're getting back to the point that I can actually start getting towards running a couple trains. And I can just make sure I save it, because I don't want to lose that. Yes, this is kind of currently what I have so far. Main line's looking pretty good. Sea Islands branch, again, scenery is needed, but we'll deal with that. This line has the concrete track alongside because in lore it's in the process of being double tracked. The track that's currently connected everything with the wooden ties, that's the existing main line that's being used. Eventually I'll build a lot more scenery. So now let's finally run some trains. Need to run some commuter stuff, so I did some basic reskins of some old gallery cars. I like gallery cars, but nobody's made decent ones recently. So I'm gonna set up a couple commuter trains to run through here. From here, I should say. Then I'm gonna set up basically an 11-car express train, like, again, just like what Metro runs. Trying to make sure I get this right. Yes, they do run cab cars in the middle of the train. That's the reason for that is because of if the cab car on the end fails, you can cut it off along with the cars that are being problematic, and just run a shorter train. Just need one more gallery car here. Alright, Trent. I don't have any power set aside for this yet, because I'm not good at reskinning power, so. Eventually my power is going to be E-units and some other sort of assorted commuter power. My railroad is basically just a line of misfits, and other railroads kind of got rid of, so it is what it is. And I kind of like it that way, so. Actually, I should move this over. So this uses this consist I'm going to use later, but something in my eye for a second. So this is going to be an all stop. This is going to be an all stops train. What I'm planning to do is, this train I'm working on right now with the VRE leader is going to be just an all stops mainline local. The train with the E unit is going to be a branch line train, specifically on that other single track branch line. And then that express is just going to run on the main line as well and skip a bunch of stops as express trains do. So one of the things I'm going to do is make sure these signals work. This train's only going to run as far as Woodville, which is the current end of commuter service. Only the express is going to run all the way to McClellanville, just to kind of test out what the timings are like on that part of the line. Things I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up to basically run as a full express and start at the same time. Not actually, I'm just going to focus on one train because one Malcolm at this point, South Carolina. started to do this signals for the station yet, because that's going to be a job and a half. Basically, show things around here. This is the freight yard, way over here. This is all going to be harbor past there, but I haven't gotten to that yet. So the main freight yard, intermodal yard, and there's going to be another small station for the cruise terminal here. This loop allows trains to basically run around so they can go back either way or just continue their journey without having to completely by the train or anything like that. These buildings aren't going to be there for much longer. It's there because they copied and pasted them for the mail tracks over here. A lot of coach yards, auto loading tracks, service tracks for freight locomotives. There's shops, roundhouse. Got a bunch of tracks for stuff for trains going this way. Goes out towards North Charleston, Somerville, Columbia. This way out here goes towards West Ashley, going down towards Savannah. And haven't built any of that yet, but this is the line we're taking, and there's separate freight tracks for part of this line. Assets on this route are just kind of temporary. These are their placeholders until I can learn to create something better. CSX 1869 is in Savannah and CSX 21.5, so that wish it was an I-138, but that's an 1869 times. Wouldn't hurt to see it again. It is pretty right. CSX 1967 reported Newberry, South Carolina. East 19 Birmingham, Indiana, so I'm not going to get that. CSX 42, only two is Birmingham. Unknown intermodal break truck. CSX 1851 reported Bolston this morning on I-195 in Jacksonville. That might come here. Someone noted that 1851 was reported to have been involved in an accident in Dunkirk, New York on Tuesday. Freight crossing accident. No damage to the locomotive. Can't say the same for the vehicle that it hit. And again, that comes back to my message of don't try to beat the train. bridges aren't going to close in time, so don't freak out about it. It's just a work out how to... I had to figure out how to program them to close faster. I think 30 miles an hour is reasonable speed going over a bridge, but... This particular area of the road I have done a lot of work on. This is taking about 2 days to build what I have over here. All these cars are numbered the same because they don't have auto running numbers, so these are kind of just placeholders until better gallery cars are available. Still acceleration. Just like my car. Honda. Hold on, not done accelerating. Just find that this train doesn't accelerate too fast right now because this is only a short section of being able to run 79. So I haven't really obviously this area, even this area isn't complete. The particular area of Daniel Island that this would be on is there is nothing there in real life. I actually don't know why. Given how overpopulated the Charleston area is right now, I'm honestly surprised they haven't built every square inch on Daniel Island, considering it's technically part of the city. I still have to populate this parking lot. I'm not even going to bother with the garages. And this over here is just supposed to be like a kind of light industrial area. Obviously not complete. This is where the freight tracks end. These separate freight tracks. And again, this isn't going to come down behind me. That is what it is. Could be worse. Honestly, what I really wish about these bridges is if they actually just would be just static. Because there's a lot of stuff that, that operate, there's a lot of operating stuff that it looks cool. Maybe you can get it in O gauge. But if you're trying to make a properly realistic route, it just doesn't really work because of time, mainly. There's no station builders here yet, but there eventually will be. As of right now, this is the station is Hobcaw, named after the creek nearby that's eventually going to be built kind of running across that. These tracks go to Long Point Container Terminal. But eventually I'm going to finish that too. This is the only station on the railroad right now that, at least that I've built so far, that only has island platforms. I don't think there will be any other stations that just have island platforms. And I've just built this. I guess for the railroad it'd be an overpass for. It's honestly not easy to build stuff like overpasses in this game because the way the terrain works is a little bit weird. That built-up area on the road coming up, that's eventually going to move on the road close to the Rathmel Bridge. That's another thing I kind of have decent model to represent, because it's a little really unique looking bridge. I don't know why I got that. I drive it all the time. And yes, that station of Mount Pleasant is in here is actually New Haven Union Station, Connecticut, repurposed. The main line is technically the divergent line here. It's ironic enough. It happens like that sometimes. Going ahead is the Sea Island branch. Honestly, this building right here is remarkably close to what's actually there. Excuse me. This is around Shem Creek, which is it's a very popular area for people to hang out. Another thing I plan to build, I plan to put a railfan park in this little triangle, whatever you'd call this area. And the tower would technically be preserved. Yeah, this looks like just about the right locomotive to stop. Because this is about the shortest train that I plan to run on this line. I'm gonna put up a new station sign to cover up the existing one, but well, eventually I'm gonna have to make custom station signs for this route, but I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Basically, I plan out my flights in my Flight Simulator, but incredibly complex. What else if some reason the autopilot couldn't figure out how to fix that? When this route is complete, this particular view of right at the east end of East Cooper Station here, there's going to be a massive bridge from I-526. Probably somewhere around, like, actually pretty much right at the end of the station. Well, there might be. I'll have to check it. I might reroute the highway to be a little bit further south because 526 ends there. There have to be like, ramps and everything, or I might just make it like a regular highway interchange. this railroad were real, this station right here at Town Center is honestly a place I'd be using a lot. The other thing is eventually this route is going to have streetcars, but that's a ways away. I've already set up a couple streetcar tracks downtown. Haven't really gotten anywhere too far with that. Next station here's Boone Hall. This is right around the corner of Long Point Road and Route 17, or it would be in real life. Looks like the signals are working right, so that's a relief. I'm honestly surprised that the neighbors haven't made a lot of noise right now. Even up in the middle where we are. I'm going to turn off the fan in here. Or the fan, the ceiling fan with the running in the window. Stations now, so then I am straight. For all my switches, so I'm ready to put the train in the yard. All these tracks are going to be more than long enough. I could probably have the length of this yard. fairly newer area, and it's basically on the edge of town. In real life, past here is all basically all just it's pretty much just all forest until you get to Georgetown. I drove it last year coming back from North Carolina, 17 all the way from Wilmington. Honestly, it was kind of scary because I had to drive it at night. I'm not a huge fan of deer. So make sure my switches are set up right so that I can get a decent signal into the yard. get to it from main 2. Yeah, you'll actually hear that's main 1 because you have 1 and 2. 2's your left-hand main going outbound, but because track 3 is new, that is Thanks to everyone for watching, and I will see you again tomorrow.